I choose to treat the humans in my classroom because that will ultimately allow the technique to flourish better. And why that's the case is, one, it's research proven, but two, because if you can build connections with your students, you're going to have an immediate impact in their lives.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unchoreographed podcast. My name is Dr. Jenna Lower. I'm your host today and I'm super excited. I am joined by Austin Crumley. Austin, you've been on my radar for a while now and I've been following you on social media in a good way. And I'm so excited to pick your brain about some things. I love your content and I cannot wait for our dancers to hear more from you. So thank you for being here. Welcome.
Of course. I mean, I love sharing information. I love being able to collaborate with like-minded individuals and to be able to, just geek out sometimes and nerd out, but also to provide for the next generation. So let's do this.
Absolutely. Yes, I love it. All right, so we're not going to waste any time here. Why don't we just dive right in? I'm super interested to hear a little bit more about your background, your story, and sort of what led you and where you are today and sort of what you do today.
Yeah. So I actually have a background that's not very similar to people who typically come into the ballet world. I started ballet at 15 years old, and I did musical theater, like acting and all those like performing arts growing up. But for the most part, I kind of stuck to baseball and musical theater, and then wanted to do baseball. But my freshman year did the baseball team, and then later on that year, I found out that I was not going to make it for the next year. And so I kind of had this moment of like, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? This is what I wanted to do, was baseball. And I did it for like 10 years. So I was kind of like in this weird predicament. Well, luckily my mom was smart enough to kind of put us, meaning my brother and I, into dance as kind of like cross training me for baseball. And so she was wise in that way. But I ended up loving it after the first class. I literally remember like my foot cramping up and being like, this is great. I love this. And just, I don't know what it was, but it was just something about ballet that I ended up enjoying and obviously still do. So I found out I loved it. And then after I got cut from the team, I found out that I loved it more than I did before and started just going full force into it. And I really kind of felt called to be in that industry and just started to take things more seriously, take on more ballet classes, take on more technique and that sort. And, got more serious in the sense of like talked with actual professional ballet dancers and what did I need to do in order to make it. And they said like, well, since I started late, I should go the university route. So I did. So I went to the University of Oklahoma, and which has the top 5 school of dance in the nation, and just tooting them, not my horn. But they had a really great program when I was going, and they're just phenomenal in the sense that they provided many performance opportunities in addition to technique, in addition to just a well-rounded education overall. And it was there that I got my technique to the next level and was able to really push beyond it. But it was also there that I was able to really harness my anatomy knowledge. And I've always been interested in science and that side of the business, but it was there that I took my first class called Body Science for Dancers. And it was a PT, a physical therapist, actually ran the course. And so I just like honed in on her. I became like teacher's pet mode and was just after class staying for 10, 15 minutes after and just asking these questions, asking things about my body, about how to, efficiently get things done. Because I had catching up to do. I was like, true story, when I first arrived at OU, I didn't actually make it into the ballet classes with the majors. I had to dance with the non-majors because I was quote unquote that bad or like not as caught up as the other people were. So I had some like character building, some technique building, some things to really go through to be where I'm at today. And ultimately, that's kind of like what led me to my passion for body science and for dance medicine, and applying it to technique. And ultimately, it was actually why I progressed faster than, I wouldn't say faster than the people I surrounded myself with, but more efficiently than the people I surrounded myself with, because I found the ability to take in like what is huge today, which is that dance conditioning to supplement my technique, to supplement my my growth points. People call them weaknesses, I call them growth points, and areas that I can improve upon. So afterwards, I graduated with a bachelor's of fine arts in ballet pedagogy, which is teaching ballet. And then I got a job with the Sacramento Ballet, and I danced with them for 2 seasons. And it was just kind of within both at OU and then both at like within the job, I recognized that there were just some like pain points that I was experiencing as a dancer of just being in the industry. And it was nothing against organizations or anything of the sort, but it's mostly a systemic issue that I was feeling. And so I was feeling like my needs were not met. And I was feeling like it was almost impossible for me to be able to feel like I could be a technician, but like I didn't have enough income in order to support that. And like there were just different things that were coming into play. Ultimately, I decided after 2 seasons that I hit my goals again with the roles that I had in those 2 seasons and decided, you know what, I'm content with where I was at, with where like my performance career took me. And I'm going to stop for the sake of my health. And I'm going to stop for the sake of my other goals, which is to invest in my marriage, invest in my family that I want to make, and invest in the community that is ultimately going to be the next generation in the dance industry. So I decided to stop and pull back and start teaching full time. And so I've been at California School of the Arts, San Gabriel Valley, which is the sister school to OSHA, Orange County High School of the Arts in Orange County here in California. And been there since 2018 and taken on many different roles while I've been there. And currently, this is a long one. Currently, I am an academic teacher by day. I teach biology, AP biology, honors, regular biology. And then I hop on over to our conservatory program and I teach classical ballet to both commercial dancers and to classical and contemporary dancers. And it's lovely. I absolutely love it.
I feel like that is such a good story for dancers to hear because I feel like so many of the things that you said are probably very similar feelings that other dancers have felt and things that they've
Oh yeah.
experienced. I think they're so common.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like they're chalked up to being normal,
Yep. Yeah,
but
absolutely.
common is not normal. And so I think it's awesome to hear you kind of speak about your experience, like even just, stepping away for your health and making those decisions. I mean, I think that in itself is really inspirational for dancers to hear. So thank you for sharing that story. We
Oh yeah.
probably could talk so much more about just that.
Yeah, because especially since I make it sound so linear, but in
Yeah,
actuality, it wasn't that case. Like there was so many thoughts and decisions and things that really kind of had to come to be in order to make that final decision of
of
stopping
course.
performing. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
interested in talking about it later.
Yeah. Maybe we need a part two.
I know, right?
So one of the things I feel like that caught my eye most about your content, like I said, I love your content that you put out. And I feel like what really caught my eye was first that you kind of described that you provide like a holistic ballet education. I thought that
Hmm.
I'd never seen that term before, which automatically
Oh,
was
cool.
like, what is this? Tell me more. And then I feel like I saw a post recently that I don't remember exactly what the post was, but I just remember that you mentioned like treating the dancer as or working with the dancer as a human first,
Hmm.
which I feel so strongly about myself. And so I was wondering if maybe you could just elaborate on that, or on this idea of holistic ballet education. I'm sure they kind of like merge together a little bit, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and what that means to you.
Yeah, of course. So based on that idea, I do, it's just basically a lot of just teaching and understanding dancers and understanding what I went through and what would childhood Austin want as they were having their education. And honestly, I did have a lot of it because I had a really amazing teacher. Her name's Claylee Stewart. Love her. I'm actually working with her in a Nutcracker right now, and it's just phenomenal. But as I progressed in, it's the actual like traditional methods kind of came in and was like, oh, this needs like some transformation, not changing, but transformation. So I choose to treat the humans in my classroom because that will ultimately allow the technique to flourish better. And why that's the case is one, it's research proven, but two, because if you can build connections with your students, you're going to have an immediate impact in their lives. As human beings want to connect with each other, that's one of like the foundational things that we want in life is to have connections with fellow human beings. And when that's not met, falsehoods, things, problems, issues arise in us, in our psyche, in our emotional states, in our social states, that it then deteriorates who we are and what our image is. So it's kind of like an interesting approach because it's super like it seems super simple, but it's actually very all encompassing. So the research really is it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And you're shaking your head because I think you know, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs is really amazing. And if you've never seen it, go look it up while you're listening because if you are able to meet a person's needs, they are better supported in whatever they're going to do, whether that's academics or that's your that is in just normal tools, tasks, hobbies. If your needs are met, you're going to come to fruition and be the best person possible. So it starts as physiological needs like food, water, shelter, clothing. Then it's safety and security. That's like your health, regular health, family stability, or the ability to be social, the loving and belongingness. Then it goes to self-esteem, and then it comes to your actual self-actualization. Because you can't have self-actualization until you feel like your survival is okay and you're fine in your predicament. And not everybody is in that predicament, and it's unfortunate. But that's where we can actually bring in inclusivity in our teaching too, instead of treating every single individual like you're an object and you need to do ballet for this reason, you know? So if you're able to meet those needs, then you're able to see flourishing in their technique and their artistry and you'll see them just blossom and like crazy. So that's like the gist of it. And I know that was a
That's
lot, but
amazing.
that's like the gist of it.
No, I feel like that's amazing. And I wish that that was a normal thing in the dance world because again, you say like, oh, like the idea kind of sounds, it just sounds like it makes sense, right? Like, of course, we hear these concepts and we're like, well, yeah, of course that all makes sense. But I think the reality is that's not what most of our dancers are experiencing probably. Of course, there's always, there's wonderful studios and wonderful teachers. And it's not to say that that doesn't exist, but I think just
Yeah.
in general, the culture is not what you're talking about. It hasn't been
Yeah.
traditionally.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I don't know about you, I feel like there is a shift happening, but I think it's slow. It's slower than, at least, as a dance scientist, the slower than we want it to be.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a bit of a shift happening though. Maybe it's social media. I don't know, but I wish that there were more teachers out there like you.
It's a nice affirmation. And I know that like, I agree entirely. I think that what teachers are afraid of is that if they start to treat them like humans, then the technique is going to fall and the technique is not going to be as excellent. And so then they need to continue the fear-based instruction or the traditional methods in order to make excellent dancers. But it's actually not true. I've been teaching since 2018, like I said, and I have wielded alongside my colleagues amazing dancers and also amazing humans because of this approach. So it's just honestly like it's one of those things that you have to invest and you have to trust and you need to be able to determine for yourself that if this is something that you're going to want to um, partake in, ultimately for the benefit of other people, and take that trust fall. But
Yeah,
it's definitely
yeah.
worth it. I promise.
I mean, it sounds like it. I'm sold. So,
Good.
the other thing that and again, I'm sure this is all kind of tied in, but I've seen a lot of your content lately has focused in on this idea of social emotional learning.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a lot of people, maybe that's a term that they haven't heard before,
Oh yeah.
if they're not maybe in the educational space or something like that. So, can you just elaborate on what that term means?
Yeah. Yeah. So I totally forgot to mention earlier that I have a master's in education. That probably would have been helpful,
Oh,
but but so we'll put that in later, I guess. But yeah, I do have a
just
master's
one
in
more thing.
education, but it's and it's a lot of my training was affirmed, and like my training in my master's affirmed what I already knew, and it gave me resources and tools to be able to apply them. So SEL, or social emotional learning, it basically is life skills. It's the ability to get through challenges, the ability to build relationships, the tools that you need as a person to make decisions. And so it's a very natural process. And ballet does do it. It naturally does incorporate SEL. But what we are experiencing, and I say we, meaning like the educational community, is experiencing is it's not doing it with efficiency. And it's not doing it in a manner that will allow the human to really thrive in that environment with a combination of other things that, of course, we want to transform. But I believe, and I fully stand again for this, that SEL can truly be like a game changer in the classroom because it's been a game changer in mine. So really, it's about developing skills like self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, relationship skills, and then lastly, responsible decision making. Um, they're crucial for life, but they are crucial for being a dancer in the industry. No matter what industry you're in, I have friends that are in like Wicked on Broadway, and I have friends that are in national tours, ballet companies across the nation and in Europe, and some that are just in LA doing commercials and stuff like that. And they all have to have relationship skills, working with the director, working with each other. They also need to make decisions. Do I have this today in order to support my training or my, the filming, the 12-hour filming day? So it's not something I think, oh, I'm about to like so passionate. I'm just like all over the place. But it's
I love it.
basically like it allows the teacher and even dancers to be able to have these skills and to know when to use them. And so it's an intentional implementation within ballet class. And it doesn't even need to take that long because it's naturally already there. It's just being strategic with the way in which you are utilizing it. And of course, I have examples, but well, I'll pause.
No, I think that that's amazing. I mean, what a perfect way to be setting dancers up for success in
Yeah.
life in general. I think that that's an awesome tool to be using in the classroom. And again, it sounds like it's so simple, like it makes so much sense. Do you have any thoughts as to why maybe this hasn't been in the traditional sense, like a standard thing that's practiced in studios?
Yeah. I think that it's multifaceted. I think a lot of the issues arise, and the reason why this is not implemented already um, at a more curriculum kind of level is because there's just no time. I think that's like the
Fair.
baseline. There is no time.
Yeah.
Every teacher that you talk to is like, I didn't get to Grand Allegro, or I didn't get to this today because I've been so focused on correcting, or they don't have the foundations. I need this, they need this. But in actuality, like I said earlier, if their needs are met, then they'll actually be better at understanding the corrections and then better to use them in the next class. And so there's that chain reaction, and it's really cool. Um, but I do think it's a time issue. I do think it's also an education issue. I think that teachers, the way that in which we pass on technique is oratory. So it's through oral instruction. We hear our teachers, we teach like our teachers, unless you're like, I don't like that, I'm not doing that. And then you make the decision to not be like your teacher, but then you're yourself, you still have to get that thing from somewhere. And so it's really just like science. You just change variables and you try to manipulate things here and there to determine, does this work? Does it not work? And so, unfortunately, science takes time too, and it's that trial and error that determines the success route. But that's also life. So this social emotional learning is actually a tried and true. It's very proven. There's frameworks that can be found online everywhere. CASE-L, case with an E and then an L at the end is a framework you can use, where mine is kind of based off of. And that has a multitude of resources and research that has proven that it works in both academic classrooms, but also artistic classrooms too. So I think it's just ultimately a time issue, like you mentioned, or like you had asked. The issues are time.
Yeah.
The teachers don't feel like they can implement it because they're like, I only have an hour to teach it. How am I supposed to implement this one thing too? I teach an hour every week and I still do it. And that's just because I have the education. So I'm able to use it.
Yeah.
But then it's also, it's an investment too. You don't know if it's going to work. And maybe it won't work right away because the students are just not used to it. But at the end of the day,
Hmm.
it will because you're meeting their needs. So those are the two things that I think ultimately are like the reason why we don't see them. integrated, again, you'll have teachers that will train within the training. Um, they'll train the students or the dancers, even professionals, like how you need to operate here. And so it is naturally there. But again, if it's integrated and it's intentional, you're going to see a huge change.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. No, that is fascinating. So, because this isn't something that maybe is standard in a ballet studio or in a classroom, do you have any ways that you can, or any tips that you can give dancers, like if this isn't something that they've experienced before, what are maybe some ways that they could still develop these skills within, their dance training without maybe getting it from a teacher, or
Yeah.
can they?
Yeah, no, they totally can. It's actually as simple as the things that they probably already do, but it's again, the key word is being intentional. Intentionality for me is about being specific with what you're doing. And so, my intention every morning is to, since I'm a dad and I'm a husband, is to wake up, make the coffee for my wife so she has an easier day with babe, and then to prepare lunches, blah, 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 make sure my mindset is ready for the day, and then I go to work. And so I am intentional with my morning to set everything up for success. If I were to wake up and be like, yeah, I guess I'll make coffee, and then what do I need? Oh, this thing too, then my day is probably not going to be that good, you know? So we need to have intentionality in our practices in order to really reap the benefits of what we are putting in. We want a good output, and so have a good input too. So there's things that you can do. I've actually broken it down by the skills, and so there's some things with self-awareness and self-regulation you could do. Journaling, what? Who would have thought? So if you
Love
regularly write
it.
your dance experience, I know it's so funny. You're like, wait, is that simple? Yes, it's that simple. If you do journaling, you're becoming self-aware and you're regulating yourself because you are reflecting upon your experiences that you did that day. You want to note your emotions, the challenges you went through, even the successes, your pain points. Identify patterns, things that are you find that you tend to do, and that could be, pronating in the feet or tucking your hips. Those constant corrections that you get, boom, journaling, put it in. Triggers, what triggered you that day, and it doesn't have to be all traumatic. It could also be like, I'm not doing too well in this class. When did I last eat? That's something that's like it's triggering your mind to go, oh, maybe I need to eat a snack right before class or 15, 20 minutes before. And then areas of growth. You could also practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is really great. It doesn't all have to be meditation. It could quite literally be 5 minutes of just being peace, scanning your body, feeling yourself out, and trying to see where your stress levels are at that day and becoming attuned to that. Goal setting is I'm a huge fan of. I have a workshop on my webpage for that if y'all want to check it out. I actually go into more depth about my experiences and how goal setting helped me out. So I can actually send you the link for that too.
Yeah, perfect. We'll
What's
definitely be sure to put it in the show notes.
right on? Social awareness, relationship, if you want to work on those things, then hey, active listening is really great. The difference between passive and active listening is like passive is you're on your phone while someone's talking. That's actually distracted listening, but it's a little bit like that too. Active listening is kind of like what I'm doing with you right now is I'm straightforward with you. I'm making eye contact. I am not wanting to talk, but I am I'm listening and I am responding with what you're saying. If you're asking a question and you can respond with what they said and then move on with it, because that tells the other person you care. It tells the other person you're listening, building empathy and strengthens that relationship there. Um, Collaboration. Oh my God. One of my favorite activities to do in class is collaborate with each other. And so I'll have my students, you can even do this on the side, dancers. On the side, you can ask a friend, hey, what are they doing? What's that dancer in center as the first group is going? You can ask a friend, hey, they're doing that one thing. What do you think is happening? Why do you think their result is that way? And an example is maybe they're falling out of their pirouette. They're falling to the right side in an en dehors pirouette with their right leg up in passe. Why are they falling to the right? Then that friend and them can quietly talk on the side, please. They can quietly talk on the side and go through those things. That makes you have relationship skills because you're talking with another person, allowing them to talk, you talk. And then it also gives you an opportunity to then divulge into your technique and talk about it and whatnot. And there's science behind talking about your art form, your skills, whatever you're learning. It will actually make you understand it better. So those are like some examples. Again, I can go off and I have a whole list. I'd be happy to share them with you too if
Yeah.
anybody
Oh my
wants them
goodness. This
because
is
they're super
for
important.
sure. I think
But
these are
yeah,
amazing. I mean, these are such good tips. And again, I love that you present it in a way that's seemingly, I mean, I don't want to say easy, but it is simple, I guess, because they
well, yeah,
are very natural. So
yeah,
it's not like you said, I think before, where it doesn't take all this extra time. It's a very natural integration. And I love how every dancer can, that's something that I think that they can walk away with after listening to this and implement immediately, which is
yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Plus, you are totally speaking my language because I feel like, and I think we might have even had this discussion in DMs before, of like, as a physical therapist, I think I pull a lot of that stuff into physical therapy too. But I love, like, I don't teach dance, but I feel like I've gotten so many good ideas from things that you post, of like, oh my gosh, I should try that more with my dancers in here and see if I can get a better response, from them in here, maybe more
Hmm.
motivation or whatever it is, more buy-in to the physical therapy, because that's always an issue with some of the young dancers too.
Yeah.
And so I love that, like, it branches outside of just the studio as well.
Oh, totally.
Mindfulness, I love mindfulness, intention, like these are all huge
Yeah.
things that we know are really effective, so why not pull them into your dance training? It's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, especially in this setting, and it's funny because you're right. It's super applicable in any setting, and whether it be business. So, like a lot of my dancers that graduate from my high school, they don't actually go into the industry, and it's fine. I'm totally fine with that because at the end of the day, what they experience in a ballet classroom or any dance classroom, for that matter, is going to benefit them in whatever job they choose to do. And it's just phenomenal what they choose to do and how amazing they are at it because of what they can translate over. Um, so that it is interesting too. On a second point is like I actually pursued physical therapy, and so I know like I
Did you?
observed, I did my whole route. Yeah, I was right there about to apply, and then the beautiful pandemic happened, and I kind of had to switch courses and figure out how I was going to operate after that. So I have a really heavy PT background too, um, where that passion is there. So in your field, it could very much be like one of the things that PTs struggle with, and you can affirm this or not if you like, is clients not doing their homework. Is what you
Yes.
set them up and you're like, hey,
I
you need to
I
do these
affirm
things.
that. Yeah.
You need to do these things if you want to get better. And then we're human. We don't want to do extra work. It's just part of the process, you know? If there's a opportunity for us to be in homeostasis, in stability, then we are going to do that. You know what I mean? It's just part of the human experience.
Mhm.
So in order to make it more, in order to get more investment, what you can do instead is instead of it being a PT goal of like, because we're so, and I say we because like I said, PT, but we're so like goal oriented in like, can you get 2 degrees more in this range of motion?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for them, what is that?
Mhm.
It doesn't mean a thing. But instead, it's, hey, can we get like, if you're doing a rond de jambe à terre, can you do just a little bit more without moving those hips? Can you get on this little stability board? I forget what it's called, the one that moves with turnout. Can you get on that
Mhm.
board and can you manage it for this amount of time? Because ultimately, my friend, it's going to produce this dance goal. Can we do it? Or you just put it in their court. What do you want to achieve? And then it's their goal. Now it's their decision to meet their goal. And there's such like a huge the buy-in for them. It's so
Yeah.
psychological too, but it's such a
That's like
huge
the light
buy-in.
bulb moment, I think.
Yes,
They
yeah,
get that, like, oh,
they
yeah,
do.
I get it now. Like, that's what this is for.
Yeah, because the moment that, for what I've noticed is that the moment that the students sense it is theirs is the moment their autonomy comes into play and their responsibility comes into play and they start making it their own. Because ballet is so like, you come to my class, I'm the teacher, you come to my class, you learn from me, and either you get it or you don't get it. But in actuality, you're paying for that education. That's yours. That's your education. You're choosing to take ballet class. So it's the like a flip of the script, and it's an opportunity for students to kind of like not take control, like they own the class because they're still the expert in the room. But at the end of the day, it is your education, it is your opportunity, and you have the ability to speak up and say, I don't understand, you know? And so
Yeah.
that I challenge the listeners, viewers, whatever you're doing, to do that and to actually challenge yourself in the classroom. If you don't understand something, raise your hand. You know,
Yeah.
it's super like scary, but you know, at the
Right.
end of
Of
the day,
course.
it's your education.
I think it's scary, but hopefully after they do it and get comfortable with it, I think it can be really empowering.
Yeah, because you know what that's going to tell your teacher? That you care and that you
Yeah.
want to improve and that you want to progress. The teacher's probably going to be dumbfounded. One, because you asked a question in a ballet class, but two, because you care enough to ask the question in a ballet class. So it's kind of this weird,
Absolutely.
awesome, phenomenal moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And there's definitely, I think you mentioned it before, there's some of their like, fear-based tactics sometimes. But at
Right.
the end of the day, every teacher wants you to care. They want you to enjoy your time dancing. They want you to be healthy. Like they want all these things for you. So yeah, don't I love that, to just not be afraid to speak up and ask a question. That's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Austin, this was such a good discussion. I feel like I can like feel your passion is palpable and I love it so much. I think you gave some really awesome actionable tips for dancers. We definitely will be sure. You send me some resources. We'll link them in the show notes. But tell everybody, where can they find you? What's the best way to reach you? Yeah, where are you at?
Yeah. So the best way to find me, I primarily operate on Instagram. I'm actually going to have a new handle. And so you can find me at the Ballet Educator. And there you'll be able to find a bunch of different resources for dancers, resources for teachers, resources that is all about community. And so you're going to find not just stuff from me, but from stuff from like people like you, physical therapists, dance medicine specialists, nutritionists, people that are really care about this industry and want to propel it forward. That's where you can find me. So it's the source for everything ballet education, basically. That and then ballet
Love it.
re-education is my thank you, is my business. It's my courses, workshops. That's where you're gonna see like the real tangible stuff if you want to improve. That's basically it's higher education at an accessible form. So you don't have to pay gajillions of dollars to go to university to get the same education as you would with ballet re-education. And so it's accessible to dancer and teacher. You can get what you need, and then you can still move on feeling like you didn't spend an arm and a leg. So that's Ballet Reeducation. And then if you can follow me at the Ballet Educator, those two names, anywhere you go, that's probably where you'll find me.
Perfect. I love it. I love that there's an option. Hopefully, people want to learn more from you. So, hopefully, everybody will go check it out. Thank you so much for having this chat with me today. Hopefully, we'll have a part two someday. Sounds like we've got
Yeah,
lots more to talk
absolutely.
about.
Oh,
All
we can go
right.
off.
Thank you. We
Thank you
could.
very
We
much.
could. It was awesome. Thanks.